And we will not forget the third part of that call, which is to change the law so that lockdown abuse can never happen again.
Good news for all South Africans. You can finally remove your mask and free your face. Somebody who's very happy about this is Gabriel Crouse of the IRR, who's no longer wearing his mask, but instead his big smile and beard. Gabriel, I think the IRR has played an integral role in getting South Africa to this point, better late than never. What occurred this week and why is it important?
Yes, David, thank you so much. Mask off, smile on, as our colleague Becky Mahlop said. Basically, what's happened this week is that Health Minister Joe Phaahla started the week off by writing a letter, proposed that the mask mandate, the vaccine pass, and the venue capacity limitations be lifted. Effectively, this means repealing the last of the lockdown measures. Those lockdown measures have been in place for 818 days. That's 2 years, 2 months, and 27 days. We think that whatever the noble intentions in the beginning, the effect was not what it needed to be. In fact, some of these were counterproductive towards the end. So yeah, we campaigned. We got over 15,000 signatures to our petition to end the last of the lockdown, to disband the Coronavirus Command Council, and to really change the legal structure, the Disaster Management Act in particular, so that lockdown abuses can't happen going forward. The immediate implication of this is that this evening I will be able to go and watch the symphony with a full crowd. And that major venues for rugby and soccer will be able to fill up to whatever the market can sustain. And that not only has a joyous effect, and let's remember the joy, it also has a really important economic effect in a country where 55% of youth are not in employment, education, or training. That's youth between 24 and 34 years old. We need as many opportunities to open up for people semi-skilled and unskilled who want to get into the service sector. And I think this is a very belated but very important step in the right direction in terms of that.
So Gabriel, civil society organizations like the IRR, I think, play a critical role in holding government to account. You know, what I think characterized this lockdown period was an indifference by the government in terms of public consultation. Often, civil society had to take government to court to achieve certain objectives. It seems like this is another reflex, preemptive avoidance of another court action launched by DRSA and other groups. Why do you think there's this sudden kind of rush of common sense? What has informed this decision?
I think that's right, David. I think that unfortunately, the Coronavirus Command Council has not, as it were, followed the science. I'm aware of sources on the Ministerial Advisory Committee who for a long time, since last year, have been extremely frustrated, quite vocally frustrated, with the refusal of government administrators to heed the advice coming out of scientific experts. Of course, earlier this year, a series of 6 scientific experts, including Professor Shebia Mahdi and Glenda Gray, wrote an open letter damning the ongoing regulations. So that kind of public frustration and complaint has been important, and it's been given bites in court. We went to court last year on the elections matter, which I think was the most existential threat to our constitutional order. And we're very glad that our arguments to the effect that Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma acted irrationally were vindicated in the final judgment, which used exactly those words, that word to describe her conduct. Again, she's been deemed irrational by a Supreme Court, although not the apex court, in terms of the tobacco ban. And a further court action was looming to tackle effectively the same regulations, the same last legs of the lockdown that were going to come under a different name in August. And I think that to avoid the costs, I suspect that at some point maybe some lawyers got involved and said, you're just going to cost the taxpayer a whole bunch more money by dragging this out. I think that is part of it, but I also think that part of it, and we're very pleased with those civil society organizations that have played such a vital role there. And we, in fact, had built a paper trail through legal correspondence with the presidency, the Cochta Ministry, and the Department of Health, mainly to show that their decisions were not being based on scientific evidence. We'd repeatedly asked for such evidence, and we got answers like, well, it's well known that this kind of lockdown measure works. And we said, that's not good enough. We want specific scientific studies. In particular, when we saw that studies coming out of Europe, 35 countries through the second wave, which showed that masks were not correlated. Heavy masking in a countrywide level was not correlated with restricting COVID-19 spread. The mechanical study, the first in-person mechanical study with nebulizers and real-life human beings, which showed that unless you're using a fitted N95 mask, there is negligible effect for masking, nothing different compared to placebo. Sentiments echoed again by Shabir Mahdi and Glenda Gray, saying no legible effect in the way ordinary South Africans wear masks to curb COVID-19 spread. On the back of the science on that side, we said, can you give us any specific scientific evidence that masking is actually helping the situation, that curbing venue capacity limits is helping the situation? We were getting nothing out of that, and we were speaking to parties about how to introduce that evidence, either through one of the main applicants or as an amicus. That's just one of the details of how court action plays a role, and it matters. But I do think that it's too easy to underestimate the role of public pressure. The sense that government officials get when it becomes normal to criticize their regulations and in fact laugh at them on the basis of the irrationality of their regulations is very concerning to a politician whose job ultimately depends on being re-elected. There is an election coming up in 2024. The South African incumbency is under tremendous pressure, both because of the 1.5 million jobs that have been lost, the deleterious economic performance, not only during the pandemic, but also over the last 10 years, what Anthea Jeffrey, our colleague, calls the 10-year lockdown, but also because of scandals to do with individuals in the presidency and so on. We do seem to see a pattern across the world where governments that are under immense public pressure end up giving the voters what they want. And overwhelmingly, the voters in South Africa want a bit of freedom, the freedom to choose one way or another how they go about dealing with this winter.
All right. Well, I think that word that you use there, freedom, is very important, Gabriel. And, you know, the price of freedom is constant vigilance, as I think Thomas Jefferson was misattributed as saying. But, you know, I think that this is a lesson about the importance of civil society and ordinary individuals standing up against poor government policy and making their voices heard. So I wanted to thank you and colleagues at the IR for all of their efforts in this regard. And any final comments from you to those who may still be reluctantly clinging onto their masks?
Well, look, you're very welcome to go whichever way you want to go now. My argument was primarily not against masking itself, but against the government literally getting in your face. If you put a mask on yourself, that's your choice. If a government is forcing a mask on you, that's an entirely different matter. I want to say thank you very much to you, David. You've been a great help in helping us get out the word, and especially to the 15,000 South Africans who signed on to end the lockdown and disband the Coronavirus Command Council. We really appreciate your support. We've done what we can to amplify it across the public square, and we will not forget the third part of that call, which is to change the law so that lockdown abuse can never happen again. We will keep advocating for that to happen. It is important to future-proof this country against anything like a repeat of the last 2 years.
Gabriel Crouse, thanks very much. Let's hand over to you, our audience. What are you going to be doing with your mask? I know what I'm going to be doing. That's it from me, David Ansara. Until next time, take care.